Well, very good morning to you. It's Thursday, April 14th, 2022 in the Christian calendar. That's Holy Thursday. We're coming to the end of what is known as Holy Week. Tomorrow, of course, the public holiday, Good Friday, and that leads into the long weekend on Monday, Easter Monday. Well, this is how we start the program this morning. AM Prime here on WESN-CC, your content capital. In the second hour, we'll be talking with a former government minister, Mariano Brown, as we sort of take a prelude into a discussion we're going to be having later today, this evening, as a matter of fact, from 7:30, looking at the state of affairs with the National Insurance Board. There have been these calls for some time now to address the situation with the board's role as providing for people when they hit retirement. And one of the things you're going to hear in the discussion both this morning and later today is that will decision makers have simply kicked the can down the road, and we're coming to crunch point now where we have to do something about fixing the arrangements for Social Security for people who spend their lives working and then retire and want to retire as decently as possible. So stay tuned for that in the second hour of the program with Mr. Mariano Brown, and he's one of the members of the team later this evening. The others would be accountant Mr. Tony. He is a former chairman of the board. Also, Dr. Wow. Yeah. We get to that in a moment. As to who's on the team later for this evening, this discussion this evening on the NIB, what to do with it. As we continue this morning, we take a look around the region as usual. Jamaican music star legend Buju Banton. He's in Belize. We'll tell you about that when we go around the region. Nikwan, the explosion, a month later, people there are calling for the report on that incident to be made public and for the company not to restart operations as we go forward. We have the Newsday poll, we have the questions, we have the look at what the situation is with the numbers with COVID-19 in our midst. We start this morning with Mr. Alan Ferguson. He's the president of the Trinidad and Tobago Scrap Iron Dealers Association. They're talking about backlashing the issue as to what extent this association gets involved in buying material that is stolen from elsewhere. And that is the issue that came up a couple of days ago with the guy who lost his life while trying to cut some wires, and he ran into difficulty when he went too close to T&Tech wiring in parts of the country. And they say that is a common kind of part of activity in business in Trinidad and Tobago. People steal stuff from the telecommunications organizations as well as from T&Tech, and they sell it to scrap iron dealers. Well, the association is saying they have no part of that, and they want to make that clear. Mr. Ferguson is with us this morning. Good morning, sir. Good to have you.
Good morning to you, Andy. Good morning to you. Thank you for having me this morning.
Yeah, so let's start with that. You find yourself having to defend this issue about what do people do when they steal material like that, metal from various places, and they bring it to buyers. You're saying that don't blame your members for that, correct?
No, Andy. You see, in Trinidad and Tobago, if we understand the scrap industry, you will know that it have a lot of people operating without license, without the proper way how to run the scrap yard. And because of that, it has looked like it's our members taking part in this kind of act. But I will not put my head on the board and say we have none of our members that purchase somebody's material. I will do that. But when this thing start, Andy, we are right the commissioner of police because we know how to stop these kind of act from taking place, because we had done that already for TSTT in the early stage in my tenure. We had stopped it. And also, in 2011, when Jack Warner was the Minister of National Security, we did find that we had also shut down our industry. They did shut down our industry because of people cutting up bridge. All these things is things that we dealt with already. And because of all these things that taking place, in 2011, we had asked the minister at that time, Vakant Bharat, to have a symposium about this industry, where we could amend the act where our industry is concerned. We did have the symposium, we had a lot of meeting with all the stakeholders in reference to regularizing this industry, and the people who go wrong with the vans and the people who go and steal people things. All these things when that happen, if now they will go to Parliament and amend the act, because everything has done and reached, because we had sit down with the Ministry of Trade, with all the stakeholders, and put all the necessary thing in place to make sure that people just can't walk in this industry just so. They had us to go through some. You saying something, Andy?
No. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. People were not able to just run into this business just so. And you find that all these young people who finding themselves climbing up telephone pole and doing a lot of things by stealing TSCT wire, all these things will be not happening. But we still waiting, because we as an industry, we always find ourselves last. But I understand this, because I'm in Trinidad. I understand why we had to be last. I understand why we had to be waiting for meetings, why we had to be waiting to try to put this organization in a proper way. Because when we go places, Andy, we see how this business is in other countries, and we know it could be better. We know this could improve. But I don't know why we as a people always have to find ourselves looking bad.
All right, so you're saying that you can't totally rule out the fact that maybe some of your members encourage people to bring their stuff to them. So people who steal, that kind of material, bring it to some people, and some of your members, you don't rule out the fact that some of your members would buy it, but that is something that the association as such frowns upon. You want to emphasize that point. You want us to emphasize that point.
Andy, we live in Trinidad, and I want to make it clear. We know it have good police, and we know it have bad police. But I cannot say all the police is bad. I cannot put my head and a block for all my members. I cannot do that. I will not be able to sit down here this morning and say none of my members do not take part in these acts. Because you see, it always have room for people who want to do what they want. But when we find out, or if we find out, or we get the evidence, we just make it clear to them. And if we suspend a lot of scrapyard from being members, and through the past, we had even go and close on some of our members' yard for not following what they're supposed to do. We had walk with the police and close on somebody's yard because they have no license. There was operator with no license. So Andy, this is nothing strange to me. And I will not stand and say none of our members not taking part in this act. But what I can tell you, we as an organization find it clear to our members, we will not take part, and wherever the chip fall, and that is why we're so glad that this week the commissioner has said to us he will have a meeting next week with us, and we will work with him. We will work with the necessary whoever we have to work with to make sure that these acts do not take place.
Yeah, how big is the association? What's your membership like? How many people involved in this business with scrap iron?
We have 136 yards, but that don't mean to say it's 136 people, because there's other handmen and there's other people involved in our industry. There's a lot of people. There's the container people. There's the brokers. There's a lot of other people involved in our industry that make up our industry, and that is why we have about 20,000 people involved directly and indirectly in our industry, Andy.
What do you mean by when you say that, the industry, your industry? What are you referring to generally?
Well, I don't know. If you look at the news, you will see that our industry, which is the scrap iron industry,
right,
which is carry more than just scrap iron, and it carry copper, it carry batteries, it carry a lot of other different things. We're the only person in recycling representing all the necessary recycling material. And if you see, the minister just about last week has seen that scrap iron improved from 2019 to 2021 by 47% in the export. We as an industry is doing very good for this country. We're bringing in a lot of foreign exchange because our members and my men and women who work in this industry working hard to make this industry be such an industry that we could generate a lot of foreign exchange for this country.
You said you could, which means that you're not doing what you think is the organization to full tilt, to the full capacity and the full potentiality. Why is that?
Yeah, because we continue asking, we continue begging the government to assist us in a way that we could probably triple the export that we're doing right now. We, as we mentioned in other programs, we say we have a big shipping project to start. And if we start the shipping project, and this project will be the largest project in the region to bring in a lot of foreign exchange into this country. And all these asking the government to help us in this project. We're not asking for cash, All we're asking is for help our industry, like they help any other industry.
What is the nature of the help that you're seeking?
Well, all these asking for is land space and tax write-off for the equipment that we have to bring in to able to work the material that we work in, because the material needs certain equipments to able to make it be the material to be a bigger value to what we're sending out of Trinidad and Tobago. What we're sending out is that we need to have some new equipment that we need to bring in. As long as we could get the tax write-off to able to bring in these equipment and the land space to able to cut up the ship, to make the ship that, because in other countries, they have a lot of issues with how they cut up the ships and how they do it. But we want to make it safe for our workers and safe for the industry, meaning safe for the environment also too. So all these things we are taking consideration to make sure that we put something good and proper in this region here, which is the ship breaking project. And I have mentioned already, we had people come down from all different parts of the world to make sure that this project will be one of the largest projects in the region because of how we work it out. We have been working on this project for more than 8 years. And I have been spending a lot of money to bring in different people to try to give us the understanding how we could generate this project, how we could generate foreign exchange for our countries, how we could able to cut up a ship in a short space of time. If you're cutting up a big ship with just normal how we do it, it takes months. But if we get the equipment that we need by the government allowing us to bring in these equipments, it will reduce the time that we usually cut up ships, and it's something that will be safe. If you look like countries like Bangladesh and India, the way they cut up ships, we will be totally different from them, because we had traveled all over the world and looking at the best equipments that we could able to come with this project that we want to come with. And the reason why we want the government in assisting us in this project, Andy, we cannot do it on our own. We cannot do it on our own.
All right, and there was this major issue just a couple of months ago when we began talking about your attempts to, which failed, your attempts to be the persons who were retrieving the scrap from the Petrotrin places. And you all were bitter about that because you said that people were allowed to go in there and take the stuff out, people who are not your members and people who are operating ultra-vires, the best practices involved. And you suggested that, the government was certainly some people in the government were complicit in that. How have you been able to work around that? What's the nature of the discussion between yourselves and the people in the government? You had called for the Prime Minister to meet with you all. That has ever happened?
No, well, the Prime Minister said he couldn't meet with us, and he direct Mr. Stuart Young to meet with us. We're still waiting on the meeting. We was told that Mr. Stuart Young is out of the country this week, I think. And as soon as he come back, he will meet with us. We had been told that this week here. So we hope and we're waiting for a meeting. But as we speak about the Petrotrin material, we had obtained a lawyer by Mr. Martin George, and he is working on it as I speak now. So I don't want to mention plenty in it because this might go to court, because the way it's looking at it might go to court. Because let me tell you something, Andy. When we had to apply for a license, it has taken us more than a month to apply for a license. You could understand a company just a month in front to register, and they was able to get a license to bid for this material. Andy, the law in the scrap industry say, to purchase material, you must have a scrapyard license. And they continue to break the law in reference to selling all type of people the material. And that is why we had this lawlessness in this country today, because they're not following the laws of the scrap industry. They're not studying, they don't even understand it.
So people
and that is why we face ourselves in this type of problem with people stealing and doing all type of thing in this industry. But as we say, we know that all we could do is try to better our industry. And we want to let Trinidad and Tobago know that the Trinidad and Tobago scrapyard is not involved in some of these things that you see taking place. We condemn it. We condemn people going and thieving TSCT wire. We condemn people going and taking manhole cover. We as an organization, we will punish our members, meaning that we will distance ourselves from any one of our members that we find yourself involved in these things, and we take it strongly. I, as the president, I take this thing strongly. I go on the field on my own. I go to yards on my own and make sure they do what they're supposed to do, Andy. I take it serious. I take this job serious as the president of the association.
You said earlier on that you all have closed down several yards. How do you do that? How are you allowed to do that?
No, you see, the police have certain power. It's not that we will go alone. You have to go to the police and show the police how they're breaking the law. You understand? If a yard don't have a license, the police have the authority to close them down.
Yeah, and you said that there are people who authorize people to retrieve material, and those people don't have the licenses to do that. So what's the agency that gives people the wherewithal to do that?
You will know if somebody government agency. Look at Petrotrain. Yeah. That company who win majority of the material, there's no way you could get a license. You could get a license in a month time, and then it have foreigners here that operating. I don't know how they get a license, because you have to get a police a character from the police.
A certificate of good character.
They just come from foreign and getting this license. This is against the law. All these things taking place, Yeah. And that is why. This is why we pushing and we trying all out to make all these things correct, to get it correct. If you want an organization that's doing so good in export, we have to get all these things correct to be able to push more forward.
You say there are 136 yards, but you also say that one of the things you're seeking is more land space. So in some cases, what you're saying is that some of these 136 yards, they don't have the acreage to conduct the kind of business that is possible?
That is exactly. And we had sit down with the Ministry of Trade, and they had agreed to give us some land space, because some of these yards, the land they own is just short, it's just small piece of land, and sometimes some of them renting some of these land. Some of these land is not even them own. And the organization that is doing such a large export out of this country, government all over the world assist these industries. And look at us. Since 2011, we've lobbying to get land for our members. And not one of our members was able to get land, And we see other industries getting land all over Trinidad. We see people taking land. We people see getting land. But we members, we still remain. They want us to remain the same way. As in 2000, as we started this industry in the early stage, that we was all over, we trying to get land for our members too. So it's not about when you see scrapyard in such a place and they scatter all over because they don't have the land space. And we lobbied from since 2011 to be able to get land space for our members. All of us and all to Andy. So I want Trinidad and Tobago to know is that it's not that we don't want to make it better for us. is that there's so much obstacle in the way just to make our industry such better. And you know something about this, Andy?
Yeah.
Invest TT say that this industry could do better for the country. We didn't say that. It's Invest TT that they put to do this survey, to watch and see industry, to see we is one of the 7 that they choose out. And we still had to be begging to meet them, to talk to them, to be able to help us to improve this industry. It's not easy.
All right, so you're expecting to get a call from the office of Mr. Stuart Young for that meeting anytime soon?
And we hope it's short because the time is running out. And let me say this. We had engaged one of the largest mills in the world to come to Trinidad to work with us, that we were able to one of the largest mills. I don't think they understand that. We had even just about 2 weeks ago, we had foreign investors here to assist us and help us with our projects and then,
All right.
And Andy, all we could tell them we waiting.
All right, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there. Yeah, we're going to have to leave it there for now. But thank you very much, Alan Ferguson, President of the Scrap Iron Dealers Association of Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you very much.
I thank you for having me this morning, Andy.
It's our pleasure. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we go to the numbers for COVID-19 in our midst. We look at the Newsday poll, and we look at what's in the Newsday newspaper this morning, this Holy Thursday morning for Christians. Stay with us. This is AM Prime.
We dare you to dream, to see beyond the struggle, to envision the possibilities, to live life with unlimited vision. Ferrera Optical supports you with complete eyewear starting at only $795. Let's make those dreams a reality. So book your visit via 227-7000, WhatsApp message 278-2878, or at FerreraOptical.com today. We dare you to keep going. Ferrera Optical says, don't limit your vision.
Change your fate. Start to win at life with $20,000 every month. Win $20,000 every month for 20 years with NLCB's newest game, Win for Life. 6 numbers from 28 plus the cash ball could make you win for life. You deserve a win. Play Win for Life today. Visit NLCBGames.com for details. Players must be 18 years and over. Please play responsibly.
A 3-day event. Big Screen Friday, Jazz Family Saturday, Sunday Blues. Family. A tribute to Lord Nelson. North Coast Jazz, May 27th to 29th. Born here, played here.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
Burning questions, urgent topics. Welcome back to One on One, the show where we tackle the most current and pertinent subjects that are affecting all citizens, where we ask the hard questions and have in-depth conversations. What separates One on One from other talk shows is that the conversation stems from a younger perspective on topics that affect the fabric of our society. One on One, Wednesdays at 10 a.m. on WESN Content Capital.
It may seem like the hardest thing to do right now, but we all need each other to wear a mask, wash our hands, watch our physical distance, and stay at home. We need you safe. Together we can make the difference. Together we can curb the spread of COVID-19. So let's be responsible in our actions. The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, People focused, community driven.
Welcome back to the program. Up ahead, our discussion with Mr. Jerry Kangley from the Southern Marine Steel Orchestra. And they are continuing their activism around the intentions, they say, of the Nikwan plant to begin operation. They're saying that not just so soon, for a number of matters. We will get to him in a moment, but we're going to take a look at the numbers now with COVID-19 in our midst on this day, what they are, the total positive cases, the total recovered patients, and the rest of it, including the people in hospital and what they call the parallel health system. So let's look at them. 131,219, that's the total recovered patients. 6,144, that's the total active positive cases. The death toll from the virus now, 3,792. 141,155, that's the total positive cases reported since we began the counting on March 12, 2020 to yesterday. 374, the number of new positive cases reported in the last 24 hours, and 155, that's the number of persons in hospital in the parallel healthcare system dealing with COVID-19. We switch to the Newsday poll now, and the question is, what are your plans for the Easter weekend? Here are some responses. I can't afford to make plans when I have to work to make enough money to cover transportation, gas, and bills. One other response, stay home and thank God for life. Going to church and after, relaxing at home. Figure out how to pay for food and gas. Nothing, because I have to save money to prepare for the further cost of living increases come the 18th of April. And the last response, staying home, thank God for life, might get a sea or a river bath. So those are the responses to the question, what are your plans for the Easter weekend? Well, let's bring in Mr. Kangley now from the Southern Marine Steel Orchestra. And they've issued a statement warning that they want to have the report on this explosion that took place about a year ago made public. And they're saying that the company is not intending on doing that, and they want to call attention to that. Mr. Kangley, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Johnston. Thanks for having me once again. Before you begin, let me apologize to you and to the viewers if I sound a bit under the weather here, fighting up with a bit of a flu, so I wouldn't be as fluent as I would normally.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that, but I'm not getting a sense of too much deterioration in your delivery. Okay. So go ahead. So go ahead. So let me just read the first paragraph in the statement here, issued on the 11th, which is on Monday. The Southern Marine Steel Band Foundation is gravely disappointed that the refusal of the Minister of Energy, Stuart Young, to commit to publishing the Ministry of Energy's report into the investigation of the Nikwan explosion, which occurred on April 7th, 2021. You go on to say that the organization has been waging a campaign to have the report published when completed. We have also insisted on behalf of residents, workers, and visitors to the area that the Ministry of Energy, the other investigating agencies, and Nikwan hold a town hall meeting with residents of Marabella and surrounding communities who have a vested interest in the findings of the report because their safety and security depend on a safe restart of the plant. Go ahead from there.
Well, your viewers may be aware, or they may not be, that I think it was early April, maybe April the 3rd, the Southern Marines published a statement questioning the move by Nikwan, because Nikwan had stated that they wanted to restart the plant at before the end of the first quarter, which would have been the end of March, right? We in the Southern Marines had expressed some alarm at that, and we had looked at what was happening and published the statement saying that at the time it was 11 months, but it's a full year now since the explosion. No report had yet been published. 3 authorized agencies had looked at the evidence and so on, and had examined what had happened at Nikwan on April 7, 2021, with that massive explosion that had rocked the whole of the Marabella area and the surrounding areas. So we had looked at what Nikwan was saying, and we had come to the conclusion that in order to satisfy the concerns of the residents, workers, and visitors to Marabella, that we needed that when the report was completed, it needed to be published so that the entire country could look at it, people who understand the whole question of safety and investigations and so on, and the people of Marabella would be able to look at the report, at the final report, at its recommendations and so on. And we had also called for a town hall meeting between the authorized investigative agencies and Nikwan to hold a town hall meeting with the residents of Marabella to explain what had happened, to allay the concerns and the fears of the people of Marabella. Now, we had distributed this information far and wide. We distributed it to individuals, we ran flyers, we emailed a whole host of organizations, including business organizations, including politicians, local government politicians, national politicians, and so on, and to the media. And I have to thank the media for highlighting the issue, so that we think the information was well circulated and everybody was aware of what was happening, including Nikwan in the U.S. Interestingly, Nikwan in the U.S. had the courtesy to actually reply to us. What they had said is that they were not yet in possession of the complete report from the Ministry of Energy, which was the main investigation agency. They had set up a 6-man investigation unit headed by senior energy analyst Craig Boodoo. They had responded and said, they had not yet received the report, although previous statements from Nikwan had stated that they are implementing the recommendations, I suppose, of a report they hadn't seen. Right? But they had said they hadn't yet seen the report, and they was going to assure the country that when they do receive the report, they would implement the recommendations according to the law and so on, and very nice letter and so on. Subsequent to that, the Minister of Energy, as you just stated on April 7th, I think that was last week Friday, in the Parliament, responding to a question from David Lee of the UNC about the status of the report. He had asked if the report was ready and so on, if it would be published. And the minister said that the report was not yet ready. Now, this is a full year after the explosion, and the report was not yet ready. But he said the report was not yet ready, it would be ready soon, and he cannot commit to publishing the report, although they may make some of the findings public. He said he couldn't commit to publishing the report because, according to him, this may have involved the exposure of proprietary information and confidential information and so on. We find this is totally unacceptable. 12 months have passed since the explosion, and it seems to us that the minister seems to privilege the interests of the company over the interests of the community. We are not saying the plant must not be restarted. We are saying in order for the plant to be restarted, these two requests that we are making need to be implemented, which is the question of publishing the report and holding a town hall meeting. The minister does not seem to, he doesn't seem to be, to people, and in our view, to be placing the interests of the community, which is the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, who is sworn to defend and so on. He doesn't seem to be placing our interests, above the interests of a private company. I am amazed that a politician who depends on the support of the people and so on will take such a position when all that is necessary is for us, for them to allay the fears and the concerns of the citizens of Marabella, of the residents and workers and so on in Marabella, in order to at least have a settled relationship between the fence line community and the company. So we are very disturbed about it, and we are really disappointed in how Minister Young has responded.
Can you go back on what you said? He was reluctant to release the report because it might expose, was it proprietary information?
Proprietary information and confidential information. He's not saying he's saying he is not committing himself to publishing the report, although he may publish the findings, some of the findings. And the reason he gave is that, because there may be proprietary information and confidential information involved if he publishes the whole report, which I find, to be honest, I find that's totally ridiculous.
How do you think that makes sense? What is proprietary information, and what are the kind of information that...
Well, you may be able to answer that question better than I can. What I can say, though, is that I am not sure what he's talking about, but we know that the technology that is being utilized by Nikwan in order to produce the kinds of products that they want and so on, because it's a gas to liquids plant on a small scale, is what we understand is a technology that has been untested anywhere else, and it's probably being tested here for the first time. I'm just guessing and speculating on that. I have no evidence that is true. But when he comes up with this proprietary talk, it leads me to consider, what the hell is going on here? Excuse me for the language, right?
Yes.
So I am, maybe I have to consult with some kinds of experts and so on in this area. I am no expert, right? But to me, it sounds rather fishy, and we are not satisfied with that.
But he's holding out the possibility of publishing the findings, and to what extent that would meet the requirement for some exposure in the matter here, some commitment to providing information.
Well, I can't say at this point because, he might publish certain things and he'll say these are the findings, but we wouldn't know if those are all the findings.
Yes.
Unless we see the entire report. So, I am sorely disappointed. And on behalf of my organization, on behalf of the people affected, we are sorely disappointed because I think we were very focused upon what we were trying to do. I think we are very reasonable in our demand. We are not saying don't start the plant and so on. We want the plant to start back. There are people working there and so on. But safety and security comes before that. Yeah. You can't enjoy the fruits of your labor if you're dead or if you are seriously injured and so on. So I on behalf of my organization, the Southern Marine Steel Plant Foundation, we are placing it on the record that we are not satisfied with this. We don't accept that approach, and we will keep the campaign going once that is the situation. Once they want to restart the plant, we will keep that campaign going. And if they decide to restart the plant, we will insist that the report be published and that a discussion be held. Even if the plant, it's about the third time that they have tried to reopen the plant, it seems, twice last year and once this year. And they have not even met their own deadlines because they claim that the Ministry of Energy has not finished the report. This is another issue. I mean, to me, it's fascinating. It's fantastic that a year has passed in a situation like this, and the Ministry has not yet finished the report. Again, I am no expert. I am not saying that the report should be finished in a month or 2 months or whatever, but a whole year seems to be rather excessive, So I think the Minister and the Ministry of Energy has some answering to do.
What is the nature of the alliance of interests around this issue from stakeholders in the fence line and other areas, people who have an interest?
I think that's very interesting, a very interesting question. As I said, we made our information available to a host of people. Now, these are people on the ground, ordinary residents, and associations and so on. We did not get much feedback from the organizations to which we send the information, except that I suspect that the UNC did use the information that we sent for them, that David Lee used to ask his questions in the Parliament. We did get a response, an acknowledgement from one of the PNM councillors in the area. None of the PNM MPs, including Brian Manning, Faris Al-Rawi, and so on, have made any response, any official response. The business associations, none of them have responded, right? The ministry has not responded and so on. What we are getting is people on the ground, the ordinary people and so on, are showing their concern. And there are people who, for one reason or the other, do not want to have their names exposed and so on, people in the energy field who have been, contacting us and giving us little tidbits and so on of stuff that they would be aware of that we wouldn't be aware of and so on. But
they
I
don't,
must say,
they
the
don't
National
want to.
Workers Union has indicated some support, a letter of support, and the Estate Police Association have also indicated their solidarity with the issue. Now, the Estate Police Association's headquarters is smack bang in the middle of Marbella, right? Very close to the Nikwan plant and so on. So that I must confess that we were rather disappointed with the response from the organizations and institutions that we have informed about the issue, but we did get some response from some of them, and we do have some response and some support from on the ground itself.
All right, thanks for that. But I just want to, before we go, let me ask you, as an elder in your own right, as a steel bandsman, and as the central figure around a steel band, which is itself an elder organization in the steel band movement in Trinidad and Tobago. What are your thoughts about this other current imbroglio in the leadership of Pan Trinbago? You could give me a response. What do you think it's concerning?
My view on that is that organizationally, Pan Trinbago over the last few years has always found itself in a little imbroglio with, I suppose that is what democracy is about. The people looking to lead the organization. They may have different visions, they may not have. A lot of it may be people who believe that the organization is not going along the right way and so on. But I will not, as an individual, comment upon the pros and cons of who wants to be in and who wants to be out. What I am very disappointed about is that Pan Trinbago, and not only Pan Trinbago, but a lot of the people involved in steel band have not yet made the transition to a new form of expression of the steel band movement. What I mean by that, the steel band right now is shackled by the Panorama. Panorama was a liberating force in the old days. It liberated the music. It carried it to real heights. But today, Panorama is shackling the steel band movement. It is driving a lot of steel bands out of the system because they can't afford the kind of expenses and so on that is involved if everything is around Panorama. A lot of the steel bands are just there for the Panorama. And Pan Trinbago needs to tackle that issue and so on, and they have not yet done it. So regardless of who is in power and who's out of power, I think that major issue has not yet been tackled, and it needs to be tackled. Otherwise, the movement itself will start to wither and divide in Trinidad and Tobago while it is blossoming and blooming outside. That is my view on the whole affair. I don't want to comment on the individuals and their visions and their politics.
All right, well, thank you very much for that. Nevertheless, it's a good.
Thank you for having me, Mr. Johnson, and you have a good day.
It's a good statement you made. Yeah. So the Jerry Kangerly, the man behind in the leadership of this steel band, has a lot of track record. It's been there around for some time. The Marabella's Southern Marine Steel Orchestra and their activism around the intentions, they say, of this company to restart operations in the absence of people knowing what went wrong with that fire about a year ago. Well, let's begin to take a look around the region now. We go to Belize, where, the dancehall star Buju Banton has been in Belize. This story will tell you why from Channel 5 Belize reports.
Jamaican dancehall and reggae artist Buju Banton arrived in Belize on Monday as a special guest of opposition leader Shine Barrow. The internationally acclaimed musician is not in the Jewel to perform. He is simply here for rest and relaxation. He arrived nonetheless at a critical time, in the wake of a violent weekend that saw as many as 5 murders being recorded over a 4-day period. With the scourge of gang violence continuing unabated, the leader of the opposition reached out to his parliamentary colleague Karim Musa, who is the Minister of Home Affairs, to convene a discussion with various street figures from across Belize City. This morning, they descended on Old Belize, where they met with Banton. Isani Kayatano has our first story.
Widely considered one of the most significant and well-regarded artists in Jamaican music, dancehall legend Buju Banton used his influence as an acclaimed Caribbean voice to reach out to gang members across the city. This morning, dozens of young men from various neighborhoods gathered inside the Jungle Pavilion at Old Belize for a candid discussion on crime and violence.
It wasn't an event, neither was it a speech. It was a coming together of the young minds who are basically out there, needing guidance, hope, trying to understand, seeking to understand from their perspective what's going on in their mind. How do they see themselves being a change and the change that they want to see? How do they see themselves being stakeholders in this great country as opposed to furthering our fostering a path of ruination for this great nation?
What is interesting is the appearance that this most recent attempt involves both major political parties to address the issue of criminality.
I definitely see this as a bipartisan effort this administration has implemented, and you won't see the dividends now. That's what I think everybody wants to see, answers and solutions now and results now, but this is a work in progress.
It can be argued, however, that such a dialogue or meeting of the minds, as it were, has been held repeatedly to no fruitful outcome.
I am not a big fan of these meetings. I have never supported them in the past because I believe that nothing really comes out of them. But I really wanted to have a say to the influencers today in the streets, as we believe they are, in the presence of Minister Musa and my party leader Shine, that listen, we want to hear some solutions. The presence of a person we all know, Buju Banton, hopefully that would have gotten their attention. But in the presence of all of them, I let them know, from my perspective, that you cannot negotiate with guns in your hands.
It is a firm position that is being taken by former Minister of National Security Mike Purefeet. It's also a similar stance being taken by Commissioner of Police Chester Williams, who was noticeably absent from the gathering. But his political boss accepted the invitation and has joined the effort.
No doubt it's not lost on anybody the power and the influence that somebody like Buju Banton can have, especially on the lives of our young men from Belize City. And so it certainly was a surreal exchange, but at the same time, a very real and a very raw exchange.
I think we could find some connectivity there, and maybe that's a route we can pursue if we're not doing that already as effectively as we could. Buju Banton on the streets in Belize, in communities there, trying to address what they say is an upsurge in gang violence and gang activity in that country, that CARICOM member state. We want to switch now to come a little closer to home. St. Vincent and the Grenadines, SVG TV has this report we want to bring you up to date on. Take a look.
Lead scientist with the UWI Seismic Research Center, Professor Richard Robinson, believes it is difficult to predict how many years it will be before Lasso Freya volcano explodes again. After being dormant for 40 years, the volcano experienced an explosive eruption on April 9th last year after being in an effusive state from December 2020. Responding to a question on NBC Radio Today, Professor Robinson said the seismic research team can only give warning about an explosion in the hours leading up to an event.
It's easy as you get closer to an event, to an eruption, to detect when it's likely to happen. That's why it comes down to the wire, the last 24 hours. If you ask me, given what Soufriere is doing now, what's the chances of it happening, of an eruption happening in the next 50 years? Look, let's go back. Let's go to 50 years. In the last 50, I tell you that is probably very likely. Let's say 100 years. If you say 100 years, I'll say certain. As you get closer to the time when the event can happen, you become more uncertain about whether it can happen. So I'll be surprised if it does in the next 5 years. I would be surprised if it does in the next 50 years. I would be surprised if it doesn't erupt in the next 100 years.
Professor Robinson said the unpredictability of Lasso Freya means that the seismic research team has to continue to monitor the volcano closely.
Is the need for us to keep on looking at it. I'd be surprised if it does without us seeing it first in terms of the signals that we have. And given the knowledge that even we have learned from what has happened now, we are studying what this volcano did. We're going to keep on studying it to try to figure out and understand better what it did last time, so that we are better prepared for the signs that it will give next time. People don't realize that Soufriere actually behaved quite properly this time. It actually gave us some nice signals that we were able to make the call. And we'd like to hope to use that so that going forward, if and when it happens in the future, we can detect it.
Well, that's an interesting volcanology, if you want to call it that. And just remember, the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago is a volcanologist as well. 5, 10, 15, 100. The further out you go, the more certain it is. So looking at you. Interesting stuff there. We take a break. We have the news at the top of the hour. On the other side of that, Mariana Brown, with the National Insurance Board and with the Social Security for us in Trinidad and Tobago. That's our discussion coming up. Stay with us.
Seven is out, all day is in. WESN News on the hour.
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
In this season, we talk more about health, wellness, and everything in between. I am so excited to share with you everything about health and wellness so that you can design the life that you've always dreamed of. Join me here on What's Up Doc.
What's Up Doc, Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN, Content Capital.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best. I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the Content Capital.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m. only on WESN, Content
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
A reminder from WESN. We urge you to protect yourself and others from the spread of COVID-19. Stay safe by taking some simple precautions. Clean your hands often. Use soap and water or an alcohol-based hand rub. Maintain a safe distance from anyone who is coughing or sneezing. Wear a mask. Don't touch your eyes, nose or mouth. Cover your nose and mouth with your bent elbow or a tissue when you cough or sneeze. Stay at home. If you have a fever, cough and difficulty breathing, seek medical attention. Following the above can help us all to help each other.
All right, welcome back to the program. Let's tell you this. Dr. Jennifer Rouse, she's a gerontologist. She was the Director of Aging at the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services. And on matters of this sort, she's a veritable spokesperson for the Trinidad and Tobago Association of Retired Persons. Mr. Michael Toney, he's an accountant. He's the former chairman of the National Insurance Board. Both these personalities will be with us this evening from 7:30 as we go into the issue about social security in Trinidad and Tobago, where we're at with preparing for more of us ending up in that batch of retirees and how to treat with it. Well, Mariano Brown is the other panelist on that program this evening. Mr. Brown is a former member of a cabinet in Trinidad and Tobago dealing with matters of finance. Before that, he was in banking in other countries in the region, and he's now a principal person in a firm of financial consultancy. He's also attached with the Arthur Lockjack Graduate School of Business. So he's with us now to sort of prelude and to take us from this morning into the discussion this evening. Mr. Brown, good to see you. Good to have you.
Good morning. Good morning to all your listeners as well.
All right, so let's do. We're talking about the matter sort of burst on the scene again a couple of weeks ago when an independent senator, Amrita Deonarine, made a statement in the Senate. Independent senator made a statement there. She said she didn't, when I spoke with her afterwards, she said she didn't, she had more to do to expand and explore the situation, but she was calling attention to the fact that our social security arrangements are going to sort of get to their logical end as they exist at the moment if we don't do something. And she was making the point that there are more people 60 and over, 65 and over, and there'll be more of us in a couple of years to come. And we have to have some insurance in the sense that our futures probably would be safer than they are at the moment. That's the kind of frame for the discussion. I want to ask you to begin to look at it from that perspective. Where we are, there are a lot of people who say that decisions about this should have been made a long time ago, but we follow the tradition we have. A part of our culture is to keep kicking the can down the road, and we've done that, and we have to pick it up now and run with it. Good morning.
Well, yes, I think she's raising some very important points. So I think she has a point, and it's a point that we have to pay attention to, and we haven't done so with the sort of alacrity or focus that is required. The direction for this comes from the actuarial report which are independent third-party reports, which are done by independent consultants. They have been warning that the country is aging and that we need to do a number of corrections if we are to keep the fund in a salvageable state. And the evidence has started to appear. And that is to be seen in the way the numbers stack up. The fund is meant to be a pay-as-you-go scheme, which means that the contributions should be sufficient to pay all claims. And we are in a situation now where the contributions are less than the claims, with the result that the investment income that should be going towards investment and being used to build the savings of the fund is now being dipped into to pay current claims. So that says that we have to pay attention to what's taking place.
And what does that mean, paying attention?
Well, paying attention means that we have to stop that. We have to stop the difference between the contributions and the claims. And the one way, there are a couple of ways to do it. One is to increase the retirement age. The other is to increase the volume of contributions and the percentage of the contributions. And the third is to consider freezing the pensions for a period of time because they may have been expanded too quickly. Those are the three main changes that have to be done. And they aren't discrete, meaning they aren't separate. It means that they have to be done together. You can't do one, and one is not sufficient to balance the fund. You have to do three things in concert. Some sort of changes made, and you have to have some transitional provisions.
Yeah, let's talk about the requirement for increasing the retirement age. Do you think that is an absolute requirement? Because I think somebody in the government put it out there probably for testing the waters and some of the trade unions, particularly, and we're talking here about public servants, right? Because in the private sector, people have to work up to 65, but in the public sector, in the public service, it's up to 60. So we're talking about the public service, sort of having public.
Not only the public service, there are other organizations which have retirement ages at 60.
Yeah.
But let's just put it this way: in the Caribbean, and in the Caribbean context, we have the lowest retirement age at 60.
Trinidad and Tobago?
Yes, the mode in other islands is 62. In the case of Barbados, it was 65, and it has since been moved to 67. And similarly in Jamaica. So that we are not we are the lowest retirement age. And a 2-year difference is not going to make a significant difference. So there are two issues where that is concerned. One, people are living longer. And on that basis, pensions have to be paid for a longer period of time. And the only way to balance that is to have a longer period of contributions, or alternatively, reduce the size of the pension. Now, I don't think anybody wants to talk about that part. So if you want the pension to remain the same, or as a percentage in terms of your income after you have retired, then by definition, you have to make a bigger contribution. In which case, we need to change the retirement age and or the value of the contributions, increase the value of the contributions. Now, there are some other techniques that need to be done as well. A national insurance scheme, or if you want a social security scheme, is meant to be a top-up scheme, meaning that it is meant to be added to your personal savings. The whole burden of your retirement ought not to fall on the fund. And so far, the conversation has been that the fund should provide the majority of the retirement income. That is not true. The fund should be part of that retirement income, and it should be the top part of that retirement income after you have made your savings for your later years. So it is meant to be a contribution. It is not meant for you to rely solely on the national insurance. And that's one of the other issues.
But a lot of people do.
Well,
yeah.
And you can't change that immediately. That's why you have to have transitional provisions. But we also have to have a longer term conversation with the people who benefit from national insurance, so that they need to understand that your retirement is not dependent on national insurance. It's dependent on all the things you do during your lifetime. And unfortunately, one of the issues that we have noticed is that the savings element, which people are meant to do throughout the course of their working life, is one of the things that people do not pay attention to until it's too late. So that's something that also, and that's a mindset, that's education, that takes a lot longer. So that's not something you can solve immediately.
I want to jump ahead of the game and ask you whether you think whatever we do, there's going to be hell to pay for some of us, because we won't be able to manage, given where we are on the continuum from when we started working to when we're going to have to stop, and what is there for us. You think that is a reckoning?
Yes, well, the dependency syndrome, once a man, twice a child. So the bottom line is that people have to take care of you when you're young, and some people have to take care of you when you're old.
Yes.
In the past, when we had no social security system, what you depended on was your family, your offspring, your children. Now that nexus is being broken. So we have many more people who are aged but independent and or of independent means, meaning that there's no fallback position. And in some instances, this is because their children are also the economic life. They may not have the type of surplus which allows them to take care of their parents. Now, that's why it's important for personal responsibility to come to the fore. And as I said, we are living longer. And in those circumstances, the fund cannot do it all. So this has to be a multi-pronged approach to ensuring, if you want, the security of your later years. Because there will come times when there are some of us who are not going to be able to take care of ourselves. Right? Inflation, we're going to run into such a period right now as we speak. We know that world inflation is about to go up. Just think about all these 60-year-olds in Trinidad or elsewhere who are about to face a period where food is going to become more important and then therefore more expensive. And so the food is going to become more expensive. Your needs don't end when you retire. Your activities may be a little bit more curtailed, but just to stay in the same place costs you more money. And that's why you have to save for a longer period of time. So if you can't do anything about your savings done in the past, then we have to do something about the social security system, which is meant to keep you going or to help you during that period.
Yeah, so we're facing a situation in which it is going to be imperative to increase contributions into the fund. And we haven't talked about, well, what used to be called the old age pension. Now they refer to it as a senior citizens grant. The idea that is not guaranteed, and that for some reason it may stop. If it's a grant, then a grant could always be withheld or expanded and so on. But let's stay with the national insurance. That there's an imperative to ask us to increase, those of us who are still working, to increase our contributions there in order to get increased benefits when that time comes. And that is a discussion that has to happen and a decision that has to be taken.
Well, I think that the time for the decision is what you will. The time for the decision is always now.
Yes.
And the longer you wait, the worse it gets. And we're seeing that. The point is that the fund has been running into issues. The fund has been in existence for 50 years. So if I didn't say it before, let me take the opportunity now to congratulate the National Insurance Fund on its 50th anniversary. I think they're celebrating their 50th anniversary year this year.
Yes.
And I remember when I was a schoolboy, they were starting to explain how the fund would work and the benefits of the fund. I think I was still in school. Yes, I was still in school. I was in Form 6 at the time. So I guess that dates me.
Yes.
So now I have been able to listen to what they were saying in terms of what the provisions of the fund meant, right? To a situation where I've come in my more senior years, from certainly from the point of a policymaker to look at the implications for the fund and what needs to change. Now, Trinidad and Tobago is not unique in this position. There are many other funds around the world, particularly in the Western world, that are facing this issue. Now, they are difficult issues, and politicians tend to shy away from them because nobody wants to be told that they have to work longer or make longer or bigger contributions. They're not interested in that. They will tell you that, well, we understood, this is what the position we understood, and we have managed our lives to get to this particular position. But things change. And we are in a situation now, particularly now as we speak, where it's going to become more pressing, right? Because the demands on the fund are likely to increase as more people retire. And that's part of the problem. We have more people who are going to be retiring than those who are going to be working. So that's another issue that has to be addressed. And you can't legislate that. That has to do with how many children people have. And at the moment, our mean birth rate is falling.
Yes, and just come back to the question of what's the compulsory nature of, or the imperative to have people work longer. When that was put out, I mean, the trade union leaders jumped on it immediately and say, well, look, they want us to work until we're dead. And so yes, and
the union leaders say one thing in private and another in public, and I will call anyone out on that one. But when you speak to them privately, they understand the difficulties, but they are politicians too. They are standing in front of an electorate that puts them in. How do you union leaders get into office? They get elected into office, and if it's unpopular, the decision to extend the retirement age, then that's not something that the union leaders are going. They have to remember the constituency, and the constituency of interest says, notwithstanding that you may have a good point, notwithstanding that it may be important, we don't want to work longer, right? And that's where the union leaders unfortunately fall into that trap, right? To stand up and say, and the responsible thing is to say, the fund which you need, which everyone needs to survive when they retire, is going to be in difficulty. And we have to start making the adjustments today. All the problems that had been identified as early as, I'd say 12 years ago, right? And that would be in my term of office. Right? And we still, at the time, we were talking about pension reform, and all the things that we're talking about pension reform are not on the table. And they need to be on the table, particularly the need to calibrate. When the national insurance was formed, let me put it this way, when the national insurance was formed, very few people, very few firms, very few organizations had organized pension systems. And as a result, the burden fell on the NIS to take care of that, if you want, that retirement gap. And the national insurance has done so. Now, what needs to happen in the private sector is, and for those individuals who are working, if the firm isn't doing it, then individuals have to take greater responsibility for their retirement income. It can't be left solely at the doors of the fund. The fund cannot do that. It cannot take care of everyone. And that's one of the reasons why it has an upper limit and top limits, right? Because it can't do it for everyone. So there's some element of cross-subsidization by those who earn in the higher, what you would call earning brackets, who pay more than those who are in the lower earning brackets. So there's some element of subsidization by those who are in the fund. So that it can't be that you only depend on the ones who earn more to subsidize the ones who earn less, so that everybody will get the same pension. And those are some of the issues of equity that have to be taken into consideration as well.
Yeah, and there is some confusion among people as to when you retire, so you get your national insurance benefits, and then you have those people who get also what used to be old age pension, which is now what they call the senior citizens grant, and others don't. Is that an area to be fixed as well? Yeah.
Remember, the NIS is built upon an insurance principle. So you have to make a minimum number of contributions at a particular level to be able to enjoy what you consider, what is the guaranteed amount. The guaranteed amount at the moment is $3,000.
Yes.
Now, if you're in a situation, and of course, $3,000 is not a lot. You can't run your life on $3,000.
Wow.
That's why I said it's a top-up scheme.
Yeah, I heard a man saying the other day, he broke it down, he said it's $100 a day, and people can't live on that. And that was a couple of weeks ago, and my sense is that between then and now, $100 a day is less what it was 3 weeks ago.
Well, he's looking at it in a very narrow context. The definition of world poverty at the moment is those who live on $2 US a day, which is $15. Right? And there are about 270 million people as a result of what is going on now that are going to fall into that particular category. Nobody wants to be there, right? So $100 relative to the overall economic definition of poverty of $2.70 US, $15 TT, right? Say 20, right? I mean, he's 5 times better off than that. But the reality, that's a measure of contribution. Nobody wants to hear that. But at the same token, if you want to do better than that, then by definition, you have to strengthen the fund. The fund is only as good as the investments or the amount of money that you pay into it. If you don't have income that goes into the fund, then they're not going to be able to pay you down the road, pay you the kind of money that you want to live on. So let's go back to the issue that you were talking about calibrating the benefits.
Yes.
Right. Because it's maximum insurance, not everybody earns the same thing, right? The point is that you have to have a minimum amount of contribution. Some people don't make the minimum amount. Some people don't do. Some people haven't worked for as long. All different sorts of things, right? That's where the other end of the social security system comes into position, which is what we call the senior citizens grant. And the senior citizens grant is what is called a means-tested grant, meaning depending on your income, this is what we will give you. For example, you have no income sources, you don't have NIS, the amount that you qualify for is $3,500. Now that in itself raises some issues, and that has to do with the political process. In the same way that unions have been irresponsible, so union leaders have been irresponsible in terms of the way they have approached the business of the NIS. And I don't have a problem telling union leaders that if they're upset, that's fine. I'm quite prepared to have a debate and an argument when we get to this particular issue. But so have the politicians, because what they have done, the senior citizens grant is a non-contributory scheme. In other words, the state recognizes that it has a responsibility to prevent people from becoming indigent and to make some contribution towards them. And they have pegged that contribution at $3,500. And unfortunately, that $3,500 has been a bit of a political football in terms of how we arrived at that number. Because when an election comes, well, you tell people you're going to increase the senior citizens grant because you want them to get a vote for you. Remember that little political issue I was talking about union leaders and politicians? Yes. Well, that's what happened. So we end up in a situation that you can get a senior citizens grant if, for example, you have no other sources of income. But then the senior citizens grant is then reduced on the basis of how much other income that you are getting. But the bottom line, given the state's position, is that you shouldn't get less, a person shouldn't get less than $3,500 a month, right? So that if you're in receipt of other income, it's basically the senior citizens grant is adjusted. So that if you're getting $1,700, then the senior citizens grant will step in and give you another $1,800 for you to get to that $5,500 level. But that's the limit, $5,500. Now, that extra $500 means that the NIS scheme is by definition, which is a contributory scheme, the people who have paid are getting less. So the first thing that has to happen, and I guess I'll have to admit this, is that we have to raise the NIB pension to the same level of the senior citizens grant. Why raise it? Because no politician in his right mind is going to tell the pensioners who are also voters that he's going to reduce the senior citizens grant to the level of the NIS. So if we have to equalize the two things, then by definition, well, we also have to make some adjustments. You have to make a higher contribution. You have to work longer. You have to calibrate it with your private pensions.
Yes.
Those are the kinds of things that we have to face. That's the reality. Yeah. Right? You may not like it. It may be difficult for something you have to face. You may be 57 years old. We don't expect that everybody who's 57 years old is going to tell them, but you have to work to there have to be some transitional provisions. And transitional provisions may mean that you may get some sort of reduced retirement income until you are the new retirement age, and then it goes up. But those are things that have to be sorted out.
All right, I want to thank you very much and tell you that is a good first knock, and we look forward to resuming the discussions when we get back around this table at 7:30 this evening. And we remind you again that Dr. Jennifer Rouse and Mr. Michael Tony, he's a former chairman of the NIB, and Dr. Rouse is a gerontologist. She understands the issue of life for people like us and going further. That's part of that. They make up, with Mr. Brown, the team for which we will discuss this issue from 7:30 this evening right here on these facilities. But for now, we want to thank you very much, Mr. Brown. See you in a couple of hours.
A couple of hours. Thank you. Good morning.
All right, thank you very much. Well, just before we go, let me just tell you some of what is in our sister organization here, Newsday. There's some interesting stories in here. There was one story which talks about with Senator Varmadiyal Singh. He's making a point about the fact that sometimes when he says that people choose professions because they feel their proclivities, and because he said that there were 71 issues of discipline against teachers between 2018 and 2022, a lot of them having to do with involvement with their students. And he said that happens in a lot of other areas of life as well. So we have to be careful about that. And there's this other story, a NACTA poll saying that the PNM and UNC supporters are embracing the PDP, that's Watson Duke's Progressive Democratic Patriot. So those are some of the stories in this morning's Newsday. You should get it. Check it out. This is the headline. It's the front page of the Newsday Trinidad and Tobago, and that's the back page. And on the Newsday Tobago, the story is about a taste of Boko meant to preserve the art form. What that is, the area rep on Scale Down Gold Crab Race Festival. That's part of what is coming down for Easter, the Easter weekend in Tobago. That's highlighted there. And of course, the back page is sports stuff. And that's our broadcast for this morning. We want to thank you very much for watching and tell you again, tune in to us. But stay with us all day and stay around for that discussion this evening on what to do, how we face life up ahead with Social Security in Trinidad and Tobago. We tell you we have news at the top of the hour, followed by today's edition of Talking Point with Sean Small. But for now, I'm Andy Johnson. Thanks for watching. We see you tomorrow. Well, no, tomorrow's a holiday.